Moving into interest rates. Well, you can see here, we had a massive uplift in interest rates, massive uplift. Again, most people didn't think that was coming because the RBA had said officially, we don't think we'll put interest rates up for a couple of years. But of course, what people say and what people do these days, not only is it not the same, but they're not held accountable for changing their mind. And they don't have to worry about giving warning or saying, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't think we would have to do it, so we'll do it slower than expected because it was a surprise. No, it's let's get out that blunt instrument and smack everybody as they can. I will take credit for that prediction. We did say that rates would rise. We did say they wouldn't be for 6 months, and that was on the mark. But there's no way I would have thought that they would raise them this fast and this aggressively. Traditionally in Australia, when we see interest rate rises, we only see 0.25% increments. But you can see here, once they started getting into the mood, we saw 0.5% increments in consecutive months. That to me was negligent. I don't think they should have done that. Now, if you want some sort of bearing of reference for that, history is a great indicator of the future. If you look in the past, every time the RBA has put rates up aggressively and quickly, they've had to hit the reverse and bring them back down just as quick. Now, to me, that is bad management. They'd be far better to do rise, pause, rise, pause, rise, pause, and see the impact of behaviour rather than go rise, 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 oops, we went too far. That's just bad strategy. But for some reason, they don't have this chart, apparently at the RBA, to look at it as a reference point. Someone should perhaps drop it onto the desk at the next meeting. As a result, I think they've gone too fast, too soon. I think we are at the end of the rate rises, so we shouldn't be seeing too many more, one, maybe two, logically. But bear in mind, I think we've seen 2 or 3 too many already. But what has happened is we've seen a mental reset. This is still super cheap by Australian standards at the 3.6%. You can see it was a long time ago before we had never even been in this sort of low rate environment. But now that we've enjoyed all of these years with this lovely low interest rate, that has become the new norm. And we've reset our minds to say, that's what it should be. So people aren't complaining that rates have gone up. They're complaining that why aren't they zero like they were a year ago? That's not logical. That was too low for too long. So it was inevitable they'd go up, but no one was paying attention. I think too fast, we'll see a correction. And of course, the reason that they say they're doing this is to catch inflation. But I don't think that this is going to work because it's an outdated tool, that isn't going to work anymore. People aren't having the same level of lack of savings, a lack of spending ability that interest rates would bring. And they're all saying there's going to be an interest rate cliff, people are coming out of fixed and will fall off. But anyone who got a loan with cheap interest rates that they fixed, was assessed at these levels for their loan approval. So they're not coming out into unaffordability levels, but they are going to come out into discipline issues. They're going to have got used to spending these interest rate savings, and they're going to have to change their behaviour, which I think is going to be extremely hard to do. But it's an odd world. As recently as 12, 18 months ago when we did the last update, we were begging people to fix their interest rates. And people said, they'll go lower. Well, I'm not sure, but it's pretty hard to go much lower than 0.1%, but somehow they thought they would, okay? And so a lot of people were waiting for it to get even less than it was and then forgot to fix on the way up. But now it's probably too late to go and do so. Now, Australia is not an orphan. The rest of the world is also putting rates up, as is the US. And again, too fast, too aggressive, too soon. So don't be surprised if they too have to hit reverse and start cooling sometime soon. Now, allegedly, it's inflation that we're chasing. And you can see there, inflation has moved into that 8% band that we talked about earlier. But again, only just recently has that happened. So to me, I'm not sure why they needed to be so aggressive when it's only a recent phenomena, especially when it's justifiably found in the fact that we had fires and floods, in the fact that we've had China supply issues, in the fact that Ukraine was invaded. All of these are logical reasons. To me, you only need to chase something if you don't know why it occurred. That's the thing. We know why this occurred. Is this old-fashioned method going to change it? No. And one of the reasons I believe that is because people are driving inflation by their behaviour. They're spending the money. What people spend money on now is shocking to me at times. It's surprising. What we pay for stuff is incredible. And we don't go and necessarily look for the deals. People are paying brand top money and it's just got out of hand. Water, if I go to the service station, is $3 to $5 a bottle. It's more than oil, yet we all complained about oil. Potato chips, which is my favourite one. $4 plus for a bag of potato chips that has probably 2 potatoes in it. Yet, because it's my favourite brand, that's what they're paying. I look for everything on sale. It's the same potato. It doesn't make any difference. But we are now massive consumers and we are paying what the supplier is asking, and therefore he's saying, well, if you're willing to pay, I'm willing to charge. So the only way you can slow down inflation is for consumers to say, I don't want that. Now, in the old days, in the 90s, you could use interest rates as a tool because it meant people who didn't have much savings had even less money available, so they had to change their behaviours. But in the modern age, particularly in Australia, people have savings, so they will not alter their behaviour until their savings have gone. So it could take years before this sort of action is going to reap results. And hence why we should have been working on our supply issues, accepting the inevitable and getting people to offer better value and consumers to be more shrewd on their acquisitions. One of the reasons I say that is if you look at our wealth profile as Australians, it's far, far better than it ever was. And even though with house prices coming off, it has come down a bit, but it's still significant and we have capacity. And this is particularly true in the East Coast in New South Wales, where people are realising profits now in the property market. Even with a reduction in price, it's still massively above what they originally paid, and now have significant cash wealth to spend as they wish at whatever price is being offered. As a result, with that savings, monetary policy, I think, has gone into the oblivious bucket. It's not going to work. The RBA needs to wake up and understand that and start working with government to fix the issue of supply, to fix the issue of behaviour, and then maybe we can get it back in check. But the problem there is that the government is one of the biggest drivers of inflation because they are the most generous and ridiculous employer in the country right now. Things like NDIS, government schemes, at home for the aged. They are paying extremely high amounts of remuneration, for highways, for contract work. The government needs to pull its head in. Yes, do the work, do the infrastructure, do the spending, do the support programs, but you don't have to be the most generous payer in the room. Create the foundations of value and sensibility so that every part of the economy is not, forced into a corner, based on this high standard the government is pushing to. Part of that is because a lot of it's being driven federally, and if it's a Sydney wage being put in Hobart, that makes a big, big difference. But the government needs to get sensible on how it spends its money and be less generous and more demanding on the way it does it. And we as consumers need to work it. If we look at what interest rates look like now, and I've put up in red, sorry to torment you, what they were just over a year ago, back in November 21. And here we are, today's rate on P&I is 4.74 for an owner-occupier. It was 2.29 in November 21. Again, fixed rates, 5.55. A year or so ago, 2s. But people thought that was expensive and didn't fix. So if you didn't fix, you certainly are not getting the benefit. But to be frank, these are traditional levels of interest rates. In fact, not only are they traditional, they're on the low side of our traditional levels. So as a result, we should not be complaining as much as we are, but let's face it, as human beings, it's our nature to want that, not this. Now, we can't turn back the clock. If you think about it, to get interest rates to that level, we had to have a global pandemic. So if you want interest rates back at those levels, maybe we should go or lock ourselves back up. So I'm pretty sure that if I gave you the choice of this interest rate or that one, this one with freedom and prosperity, that one locked in your house for another 6 months, I'm pretty sure that all of a sudden 4.74 doesn't look so bad. Now the thing is, the fixed rates now are higher than the variable. So it's probably the wrong time to fix. Up to you what you think they're going to go to, but if we are at the top end of that cycle with only a couple of more, you can see here a 3-year rate is 5.49 compared to 4.7. So in there is 3.25% rate rises potential. Okay? If we do that and fix now, and the RBA potentially doesn't increase rates, you'll be paying more than you need to, and you'll regret it. So you're probably at the point where we might want to see what happens for a while. You've got 3 potential rate rises, which could take anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to maybe even a year if they do eventuate. But try and hold fast, try and be efficient. Rents have gone up a bit to help, and see how it goes. Now my prediction for interest rates is I do believe that we're pretty close to the end of the rate rises. Maybe another quarter is theoretically justifiable, but I think we went too high too far. I think we're going to plateau, and I think we might even have to knock them down a little bit depending on how it goes. So don't panic. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but make sure your behaviour and your patterns and your spending is as best under control as it can be, and look for fixed rates when they become more aligned with the variable, because they'll change pretty quickly as the market sees rate rises stopping and rate reductions becoming more likely. So the worst theoretically should be behind us. We'll see, and I hope I'm right, because if I'm not, it's going to be a lot of pain for all of us.